Good day, everyone. My name is Charlene. We are now on lesson 2, and we will be learning about metacognition. In this lesson, we have three learning objectives. First is to explain the meaning of the word metacognition and its importance to the learning process. Second is to identify and differentiate the three components of metacognition. And third is to discuss about the 7 teaching strategies instructors can use to develop a learner's metacognition. Let us first understand what the word metacognition means. The word metacognition was coined by John Flavel, and it was derived from the Greek word meta, which means beyond, and the Latin word cognoscere, which means getting to know. So basically, it means thinking about thinking or learning how to learn. Metacognition is the knowledge you have of your cognitive processes or your thinking. It refers to your ability to take charge of your thinking process through various strategies such as organizing, monitoring, and adapting. It also involves self-regulation and self-reflection of your strengths and weaknesses and the types of strategies you create to overcome your weaknesses. So metacognition is an essential part of the learning process because it captures a student's ability to first analyze how they think, second, to have a high self-awareness and control of their thoughts, and third, to choose an appropriate and helpful strategy for the task at hand. There are three components of metacognition. First, we have the metacognitive knowledge. Second is the metacognitive experience. And third is the metacognitive strategies. Metacognitive knowledge is the knowledge a learner has about his or her own thinking processes. It pertains to a student's awareness of what they do or don't know about their cognitive abilities, their knowledge of particular tasks, and of different strategies that are available to them and when they are appropriate to the task at hand. It is where learners become aware of their strengths, weaknesses, and are able to identify gaps in their knowledge. Metacognitive knowledge has three variables. We have the person variable, the task variable, and the strategy variable. Let us first discuss the person variable. It involves an individual's learning processes, his or her beliefs about how he or she learns, and how he or she thinks others learn. The individual includes how one views himself as a learner and as a thinker. So, for example, a learner who knows his or her strength will say that I am good at learning theories, and I think I can do this in the time I have given. Or he or she can also say that I have trouble remembering dates in history. This shows that the learner is also aware of his or her weakness. Next, we have the task variable. It involves the task of learning and how individuals process information. It is knowing what is exactly needed to be accomplished, gauging its difficulty, and knowing the kind of effort it will be demanded to the individual. For example, a learner who is about to learn new theories will ask questions such as, how hard will it be for me to learn the theories? What are the sources that are needed for me to learn those theories? And will those resources that I need be readily available? How soon can I get information to start learning those theories? Next, we have the strategy variable. It refers to the strategies a learner develops and knowing when to use it. It involves awareness of the strategy you are using to learn a topic and evaluating whether the strategy is effective. For example, personally, when I am studying a new chapter, I find that taking notes, highlighting important words, and using mnemonics and acronyms are useful strategies that help me understand and memorize the topics that I am learning effectively. Let us move on to the second component of metacognition, which is the metacognitive experience. According to Arnold Bennett, a learner cannot know without having emotions. Therefore, metacognitive experience refers to an individual's response to learning where feelings and emotions are emphasized. It serves as a feedback system that helps an individual understand his or her progress, expectations, comprehension, and connection of the new and old information. For example, when you are learning a new mathematical equation, you may recall previous formulas, examples, and earlier experiences in your life to help you solve the task of learning a new mathematical equation. Doing this will lead you to experience emotions such as frustration, happiness, or satisfaction. The emotions that you are experiencing can affect the task of learning a new equation and your determination to continue learning. Next, we have the metacognitive strategies. It refers to the strategies that the instructor teaches the learners to monitor their progress related to their learning and tasks. It is a way of controlling one's thinking activities and ensuring that he or she is meeting his or her goals. We can discuss more about this by learning about the teaching strategies an instructor can use to help develop a learner's metacognition. The first strategy we have is monitoring. It is where the instructor should encourage his or her learners to monitor their learning and thinking. Example, an instructor can do this by asking his or her students to find a partner in class and let each of them monitor his or her partner's learning, thinking, and behavior. Next is teaching learners study or learning strategies. We have two suggested strategies, and these are the TQLR and the PQ4R. TQLR is a method that is usually taught to learners that are at the primary level. It is used before listening to a story or a presentation. The PQ4R is a method that is usually taught to learners who are at the intermediate level onwards. It is more often used to study a unit or a chapter. Now let us discuss first what TQLR means. T stands for tune in. This means that the learner needs to be aware that he is paying attention and is ready to learn. Q stands for question. It is where the instructor will provide questions or the learner himself will formulate questions regarding what he is about to learn. L stands for listen. It is where the learner will exert effort to listen to the story or the presentation. R stands for remember. It is where the learner uses ways or strategies to remember what was learned, such as mnemonics and acronyms. On the other hand, let us see what PQ4R means. P stands for preview. This involves scanning the unit or chapter before looking at each lesson. Students should check the objectives, outlines, and organizers that will give them an idea of the chapter or the important topics. Q stands for question, and the first R stands for read. It is when the learner reads the actual text and focuses on looking at the subheadings, words that are bold or italicized. Instructors can ask students to underline words that are not clear to them or encourage them to highlight important words and paragraphs. The second R stands for recite. It is where students answer their teacher's previous questions and the questions that they have made by themselves. The third R stands for review. This is where the instructor points out to the students the particular topics that they need to go back and read for them to understand further. And the fourth R stands for reflect. It is when the instructor gives the students time to think about what they have read and to check if everything was clear, including the main points of the chapter and how it is relevant for them. Next, we have Make predictions. As an instructor, you should have your learners make predictions regarding the information presented to them based on the text they have read in advance. For example, you are about to teach adjectives to your students. So before starting the lesson, you ask your students to write down a set of adjectives on the board. Then you ask them questions such as, what are the words that you can read on the board? Can you use these words to describe a person or a thing? From there, you can get the topic out of your students without you doing all the instruction. Next, we have relating ideas. Have your learners relate the new information they have to their existing knowledge structures. For example, you are a math teacher. You will be teaching your students how to expand and factorize expressions. So before you introduce the new topic, you will first review your learners on how they would simplify expressions so that once you start your topic, it would be easier for them to understand and make meaning of expanding and factorizing expressions since their schema is already being applied to the new topic. Next is develop questions. As instructors, you should encourage your learners to create intelligible questions regarding the topic that they can ask you, their peers, or themselves. For example, when you are introducing a new familiar lesson, present your students a KWL chart and make them fill up the first part for what they know about the topic. And then ask them to develop questions and write it down in the second part, which is what they want to know, before you proceed to your lesson. After the lesson, ask your students if their questions have been answered and let them fill up the last part of the KWL chart to write down what they have learned. Next is help. As an instructor, you should help your students to know when to ask for help. The learners must be able to self-monitor and require your learners to show how they have attempted to deal with the problem on their own. For example, during the start of a quarter or semester, observe your class and look for students who you think shows the difficulty in some subject areas. Change their seating arrangement and arrange your class in such a way where those students who are showing problems in learning are seated beside a student who performs well in the subject area. Then during or after your discussion, encourage your students to meet up with their study partner and monitor their progress through observation and evaluation of student outputs and performance in the class. And finally, the last strategy that we have is transfer. Show your learners how to transfer their knowledge, attitudes, values, skills to other situations or tasks. For example, you are an English teacher and you have thought about positive adjectives. To see whether your students have learned the topic so well, make a performance task wherein they will make a write up about their peers that should require several positive adjectives. So that would be all for today. Thank you for listening, and remember, you don't just teach, you inspire. I'll see you in my next video. Have a nice day.